My wife held her male friend's hand during labor instead of mine, then called him the godfather of our child. And now she is getting mad at me for being mad at her. Last month, my 28-year-old wife, 25-year-old, called me in a frenzy telling me that her water broke and that she was going into labor. This was incredibly shocking to both of us, because she was still early on in the pregnancy. The problem with this is that I was already on the road about 30 minutes away tending to my mother, who had just called to tell me that she was in an accident, not a significant one, but it still shook her up. I told my wife to call an ambulance because I would not be turning around to drive her to the hospital and witness her birth. She yelled, cursed, cried and screamed at me through the phone while I tried to calm her by telling her to call my sister if she didn't want to call an ambulance, since my sister only lives 20 to 25 minutes away. After this, she went silent and hung up, and I didn't hear from her for about 1 hour and a half. I checked my phone for the first time since getting to my mother, and my sister sent me a video of my wife actively giving birth while holding her male friend's hand the way women squeeze their husband's hands for comfort during labor. My sister immediately followed up the video with a text that said, "When are you going to get here?" I ignored this text and asked her if she's the one who drove my wife to the hospital, and she responded, "No." I asked her who did, and she informed me that it was my wife's male friend who lives only 10 minutes away who drove her and was getting his hand squeezed by my wife. I ended up just asking my sister for the full story while I drove my mother back to her home, since everything was sorted with the accident. Long story short, instead of calling my sister or an ambulance, my wife called her male friend that I've always disliked, but never informed my wife. I told my sister to get on video call with me, but not to make it obvious to anyone else in the delivery room, and I would stay silent on the other end. During the call, I saw my wife's friend rubbing her back, wiping her tears, comforting her when she screamed and cried, etc. I couldn't bear the sight, and I ended the video call and told my sister to inform my wife that I would be at the hospital the next day after work whenever she got out of labor. My sister called almost 2 hours later to tell me she left the hospital and that my wife would be staying the night the next day around 3:57 p.m. when I went over to the hospital to see my wife and newborn son. She was not trying to hide her anger, insulting us from anyone in the room that included mostly my family and some of hers. When I asked her why she was acting this way, she rolled her eyes and told me to leave her alone in front of everyone later. When I tried to hold my son, she snatched him from my hands in this hospital. Visiting hours ended at 8, but all of the guests excluding me left by 6. When we were alone, I finally got the chance to have a conversation with her about why she's being so salty on a memorable day that should have been filled with love and joy. She responded by getting angry and mumbling something about my audacity to miss her birth and be surprised that she's angry. I'm not proud of this. But in response, I called her unfaithful for inviting another man into the delivery room in place of her husband. This spiraled into a short, full-blown argument between us that eventually ended when a NICU nurse came back with the baby. It's been a month since then, and my wife only refers to our son as her son, her baby, etc. I've tried to get closer to her by sitting down and trying to have a deep conversation about our family's future, and she flat out told me that she was never having another child with me after what happened, which deeply hurt me. Last week, I heard my wife on the phone talking about who would be godfathers and mothers to our son. She told whoever was on the other end that she would be choosing the male friend as godfather because he was there for me when my name couldn't care less. This post is all over the place. But let me know if I overreacted in the argument when I saw her in the delivery room after she gave birth, or if anyone knows how to fix my marriage and family at it. No, this isn't made up. I genuinely need advice. Sorry. If the wording made it seemed that way. I also didn't know the accident was minor until I arrived. Everyone suggesting we get a divorce doesn't know the meaning and dedication of marriage and family. If you have questions, please message me if you want me to answer.